Get Involved Referee is brought to you by Pressbox PR. Pressbox PR puts your brand on the map. From a chat over a pint to the headline of a website, Pressbox PR takes your brand and gives it the recognition that it deserves. With a proven track record with multiple clients, you'll be able to see your press go beyond the box with Pressbox PR. Check out pressboxpr.co.uk for more information. Good evening and welcome to Get Involved Referee with Des Roache, Steve Conroy and Lindsay Herron. And of course, a very special guest with us tonight. We've got Clyde 2's Ewan Cameron with us, otherwise known as a diehard Jambo and a man of, well, some mixed opinions. Welcome to the show, Ewan.
It's lovely to be here, Lindsay. You and I have crossed swords on many occasions over the years, and here I am on a show hosted by you. I'm kind of worried where this might be going.
Well, let's hope there'll be a bit of sabre rattling as we go on through the progress tonight. Tell you what, though, we'd like to start, since you're our special man tonight, with the Hearts game at the weekend, which was quite an explosive one, chaps, wasn't it? I mean, you're looking at Livingston, who are doing so well this season, up in fourth position in the table against Robbie Nielsen's side. A lot of flashpoints in that game. Most notably, I guess, at the end, Hearts score so late in the game to get the equalising goal. You'd be delighted with that, Ewan, but should that goal have stood, mate?
Weirdly, I was talking about this earlier with a couple of pals of mine. There was obviously, I don't know what Newbley's doing for Livingston. He just needs to take the ball to the corner flag, but he decides to go for a second goal and go for the glory. Michael Smith clears it, and then it breaks to Alan Forrest. He controls it, but he controls it as he bounces up and hits his right hand, and then he goes on, he puts the cross into the box. There's a bit of a mess in the defence of area for Livingston, and then Ginnelly from out of nowhere puts an absolute screamer into the top of the net to equalise the Hearts with the last kick of the game. I don't know what the rules are regarding the control of that ball from Alan Forrest when it bounced up and hit his hand. I was of the opinion if it leads to a goal, if a handball leads to a goal, then the referee can go back, look at it and rule the goal out. I don't know if that's the case or not. The boys will be able to tell you, but that was my understanding. So I was surprised that the referee didn't go back and look at it.
Aye, pretty much in a nutshell. Yeah. There's a few in that game that we'll look at, but we've had it several times. Was St Mirren most recently. I don't agree with it. I've said that something, if it goes beyond the time that you give an advantage, 2 or 3 seconds, then that's too historic. But precedent's been set that if it does happen during, and I don't know what the exact phrase is, when it becomes an attack that's likely to lead to a goal, then that's when you bring the call back to. So technically, that should have been disallowed. Again, I'm going to be consistent and say I don't agree with it. It's too historic. They got away with it on that occasion for me. But the law, the interpretation is that should have been called.
So why is the referee not stopped it?
Sorry, jump in there, Lindsay. Just see the Haaland incident in the Liverpool game at Anfield. The referee had a right good view of it. He let the play carry on. They score from that through Foden. And then they call it back because obviously VAR have said, I think there might have been a foul in the lead up to the goal. What is the time that the referees are meant to give it before they pull it back? Is there a specific time, or is it just open to interpretation?
It's very much open to interpretation, Ewan. There isn't a set limit where it's 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 5 seconds. The understanding, and again, we've always said this, the laws are there. It's the application and interpretation that the current referees are using. If they feel that player has gained an advantage, and it has been an advantage because they went on to ultimately score a goal, then it should have been looked at. Like Steve, I'm not entirely comfortable with it because you've still got over half a park to run, you've still got defenders to beat, you've still got to be able to put the ball in the goal. There are a lot of things that can happen before it gets to that at that point. But given the current rules and the precedent being set, I would have thought that certainly John Beaton, who was the VAR operator, should have been saying to Craig Napier, I think you might need to come and have a wee look at this.
So you got away with one there then, Ewan?
I thought it at the time, but again, as the boys have just alluded to there, what is the time? And there's so much that goes on leading up to the goal. At what point do you bring it back? At what point do you wait for VAR to intervene? I suppose you've got to wait until the ball is out of play. Unfortunately for Livingston, the ball's in the back of the net. Are they really going to pull that back and chop the goal off in the 97th minute at Tynecastle? I mean, you need to be a very brave man to do that, wouldn't you?
Exactly. And then Robbie comes running on the park. Robbie Nielsen comes running on the park to celebrate, as you might imagine. And he's booked, Steve. Should he be booked?
It's taking the emotion out, isn't it?
Yeah, strictly speaking, yeah, but I wouldn't be. And I know, I was notorious for stopping Alex Williams jumping into the crowd, and I got a snog for it. It's the same thing. He just equalised in the last minute against Kilmarnock. You're a bit of leeway.
What do we always say?
Yeah.
You've got to have a feel for the game now. If somebody just scored a goal in the 97th minute and snatching a point from a defeat, I would have been running up the sideline saying, Robbie, get back off the
you'd
park.
be shouting and screaming at him. Yeah.
Go and take a seat, or go up the tunnel. I'm about to blow the whistle. Just go and get yourself a cup of tea.
Aye.
Can you clear something up for me here? Because this is something that fans, I think, are not sure of. I mean, there's some classic moments over the years, like Mourinho running up the touchline when they knocked Man United out of the Champions League. There was one famous one when Neil Lennon up at Inverness, when he ran on the pitch and down towards the fans when he scored a late winner. And then you had Robbie Nielsen there at the weekend. Will the referee, if the referee decides to say, I understand, it's the 97th minute, it's the 96th minute, it's a winning goal, I'm going to let him off for that, will that referee get marked down by the observer in the stand who has said, you've not done your job, you should have yellow carded him no matter what has happened and what's gone on and whether it is a last minute equaliser or a winner? Will he get marked down for that?
More than likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. There really doesn't, there certainly wasn't when Des and I were on the receiving end from them. There really wasn't much leeway or mitigation coming from observers.
No. And
black and white.
And as I said, I alluded to before, while the laws are there, I don't always agree with the spirit of them and the way that they're having to be done. It's an emotional game. You've just done a monumental fact or part of that match. Yeah, come on. Let's just get on with it.
So you're following instructions from the head of the referees or IFAB or wherever it might be. So if truth be told, you really can't let your emotions or allow certain circumstances to carry on due to the emotion of the game or what's happened in the game. You have to referee the game by the letter of the book, or you're going to get marked down for it. It's going to affect you later on in the season. So it does seem as though you're not allowed to be a human being.
The laws are there, and the laws themselves are black and white. So the same as any law anywhere, you abide by it. But you can't come up with every single contingency in I keep saying a book, I keep getting slagged, a book of laws. you just can't cover everything. So there's going to be interpretation and there's going to be opinion. And again, depending on, the great one among us, it wouldn't have been publicised or anything, was swearing. How much swearing would you be willing to accept? Strictly speaking, the use of foul and abusive and or insulting language and or gestures is a red card. There's context and there's there are reasons, and you can allow it to go up to your own certain line in the sand. But strictly speaking, there's a set of laws and you have to abide by them.
In the same vein, it's like when players celebrate a goal and they run into their own fans behind the goal to celebrate if it's a particularly important goal. Technically, that's supposed to be a yellow card every day of the week, but they're not always given. So there's that kind of discrepancy or disparaging there.
The other thing that really annoys fans is that rule where players can't celebrate with the fans or jump the advertising hoardings to go and celebrate with the fans, and you see a player getting a yellow card, which is really annoying and frustrating, or if a player removes his top and there's another yellow card, which sometimes has led to a red card, you just think, oh, what, you're playing at, referee? But what you're telling me is that you are human, you understand the emotion of the game, but the laws of the game don't allow you to be a human being in that situation. That's what you're telling me.
Yes. You're allowed to be a human, but you're bound by the laws of those games. And I'll come back at you. The one, and there was the Man United boy, literally a boy at the weekend.
Yeah.
If you score and you whip your jumper off and fling it round about your head, you're getting a booking. So, and again, we're saying it's emotions. But if you do that and you were booked 2 minutes before, then you know what's coming. So it's not the ref's fault.
I'm sorry jumping out. Can I, because again, I'm speaking from a fan here, and I used to give referees dogs abuse week in and week out when I worked in football. But are you not allowed to be a bit more human and understanding of the game? And why do you have to abide by the law so stringently when you can't take in the emotion of the game itself? So you can look right in your report to the boss, says, look, look at what happened, look at the situation that we found ourselves in, etc., etc., etc. Would that not be taken into consideration? It's strictly, you must run the game by the letter of the law, or you're going to be punished, or you're going to be marked down.
Des?
Pretty much, yeah. You're constricted by the parameters of the laws of the game. You must apply them. Now, where Steve and I and referees who've gone before us, we try and mitigate as much as we can to not have certain situations happen. So I would run by players and I would talk to them. I would be using their name. I'd be like, right, come on, Steve, don't dive into that next one. You know it's a yellow card. Or you're trying to manage the game during the game and with the players. So see, when you do give a decision and there is a sanction or there's something that's going to come up, the player already knows what's coming. You're like, look, I've had a quiet word with you. I've now had a public word with you. I have nothing left. But by the letter of the law and by the observers, and because what I'll accept from some players and what Steve would accept from some players is entirely different from what other people may do. So there can't be any sort of unilateral equality, equity. It is different. People have their own tolerance levels.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where I think now, and certainly now, that we're seeing everything just as a straight line. That's red, that's yellow, that's yes, that's no. And I don't think that is, I'm not saying that's the best way, because I think you still need personalities and to sell your decision to the players, to the management, to the coach and the crowd, and they see the work that you're undertaking to have that game going as smoothly as you can.
Why is it a yellow card?
Nothing against you two or the profession that you're in, but in the many years, and Lindsay might back me up here, over the many, many years I've been watching football, been involved in football, I think the personality has been taken out of the referees from what it was back in the day. Your John McGinleys of this world, your Hugh Dallas of this world, your John Rowbottoms, etc., etc., etc. The guys that I kind of worked with, and the one that's on the after dinner circuit, can't remember his name now. Lovely guy.
Willie Young, Kenny Clark.
Willie Young, yeah. And they were all really sort of like big personalities, would have a smile on their face. But I just feel now when you look what's going on in Europe, you look what's going on down south, and in Scotland at the moment, there does seem to be a lack of personality. I mean, you look at the likes of Willie Collum, you can't go near that guy without him brandishing a yellow card and looking like a head teacher who's about to give the kids a telling off. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know why that's the case nowadays to what it was, say, 10, 15, 20 years ago. Why has the personality been taken out of referees completely?
The easy answer to that is because Des and I aren't reffing anymore. Every single generation of referees are told the same thing, that this generation, you're not anything like the generation that came before. Everybody's robotic. Every single group or whatever that comes through and matures are told the exact same stuff. I do think that there are, I won't name any names, there are some who look as though they're having their teeth pulled when they're reffing. And we all know the names. I always did it because I enjoyed it. I was having fun.
You're only a referee because you enjoy football. Let's be honest.
Some just don't look as though they're enjoying it. I'll leave it at that.
Just going back to the taking the shirt off thing and swinging it around your head. Why is that a yellow card? I mean, I'm not being facetious here because I know it dates back to political slogans on shirts and that type of thing. But if there are no slogans on your shirt and you're just celebrating a goal, what the hell's wrong with it?
I don't see the harm in it. But it was when there was a spate when people were pulling their top up and there was the
old Juan Sara days at Dundee, and Ravanelli had a Nike sponsor. So it was clubs have got commercial deals with the front of jersey that players may have their own boot deal, etc. So they might wear an Adidas kit with their team, but they've got Nike boots, so they'll lift their top up from there. But like
Steve, can I ask you, if you were refereeing a Champions League final or a World Cup final and there was a goal in the 85th minute to win the Champions League and the player takes his jersey off, are you sending him off in such a big occasion in his career?
If it's my last game ever, nope. But if I want to do next year's Champions League final, absolutely.
Right, okay.
He's gone.
Yeah. It's him or me.
Yeah, that's it. Don't ever let it be you.
And we need to talk about the thuggery of your Hearts players as well, Ewan. I mean, what about Alec Cochrane? I mean, my God, just about killed Nicky Devlin in that game, did he not?
Did you think that was a sending off? I know it went up to VAR and they took a very long time to make a decision there, but I thought he he got the ball first. And I know that's a cliched thing to say because the rules are very different now. It doesn't matter whether you get the ball first or not. If you're coming through with studs up and it's a bit high, they can still be deemed serious foul play. But I thought it was just a robust challenge. I'm not saying that as a Hearts fan, but I really didn't think it was anything more than what it was, and possibly a yellow at most.
Guys?
I think it was certainly a yellow, a very high tariff yellow. And I think Nicky Devlin was on the receiving end of a very, very robust challenge, and Cochrane can maybe consider himself a little bit fortunate.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Would you give him a red?
I would certainly consider it. I think a yellow probably suffices, but I wouldn't have come out of that situation with no sanction.
Agreed. That's high tariff yellow, an orange card. I know what I was like when I was ref, and I might not have sent him off. I would certainly have done something, and I would certainly have let him know that I was doing something. But I wouldn't argue with anybody that sent him off for that one.
So did the referee do him a favour then?
Well, we've had that discussion. It went to VAR. So if the guys are having a look at it and saying the same as us, or maybe he's aye, maybe he's no, VAR can't get involved in a caution. So the sanctions with that is that you send them off or you ignore it. Mm-hmm. So they've decided between them. And there's obviously there's been minutes of debate. They've had that debate between them, and the ref and VAR have both decided not to send them off. But that would certainly have been the discussion. And if they decide not to send them off, it has to start with a throw-in.
Who was the ref you disliked the most, Ewan, when you were covering the game?
When I worked in the Football Forum between 2002 and 2010, I had many a run-in with Hugh Dallas, who was in charge of the referees at the time. He was sat in the sixth floor of the SFA, and on a Monday morning, my boss, Jay Crawford, got a phone call from Hugh Dallas about some of the things I would say, or would have a little quiet word in my ear about some of the opinions that I would have. And I got on really well with Hugh Dallas, and he kind of saved my bacon a couple of times with certain things I would insinuate that could easily have got me into a lot of trouble had they taken it further. I'm not going to go into any details or name any names, but Hugh Dallas did me a few favours when it came to talking about referees, etc., etc., etc. I mean, let's be honest about it. We live in the goldfish bowl that is Scottish football, and there's always going to be that rumour about who does he support, who does he favour, who does he not favour. Is he in any way biased in his decisions? Is he influenced in his decisions because he's in the cauldron of Ibrox or the cauldron of Celtic Park, etc., etc., etc.? So when you get into those sorts of debates, you end up saying things that ultimately are wrong and can also lead to maybe getting a letter through the door from a lawyer or something.
I can only think that if Hugh Dallas was phoning you on a Monday morning, it must have been the second call, because the first one would have been to Steve.
And he's not joking.
No. You just look at the phone and think, all right.
Oh, here it is.
Here we go.
Here we go. But can I, again, because I've always been fascinated with referees, and I've worked with referees on numerous occasions, been after dinners with referees when they're no longer involved in the game, and you speak to them privately. It's always amazing to get that insight to what goes on behind the scenes and what they're thinking for certain big decisions that I may have been critical of, etc., etc. But here's one thing I'd like to ask you now that we're doing this on a podcast situation so that fans can understand. Everybody grows up supporting a football team, and if I was to referee, I'm going to be honest now, if I was a referee and I went to Tynecastle High School, I supported Hearts, I followed Hearts, love Hearts, and I became a professional referee, I think I would find it difficult not to be a wee bit biased towards Hearts. Or does your professionalism and your training take over?
Well, I'll take that one. I can only say that, yes, I, like Steve, grew up in central Scotland, like football. So if you like football, you are going to prefer a team or a player, which is natural. However, I've got to, people might believe it or might not believe it. I can honestly say that when you're in that moment and refereeing a game, you don't see the team, you see the incident. And whether that's for Aberdeen, Hearts, Motherwell, Kilmarnock, whoever it may be, you see the incident and you give your decision on the incident. And I'll be entirely honest, if you can be biased and give a decision to a team that you have historically supported, if you can do that quick within the nanoseconds that you get to do it, then you're a bloody better refereeing human being than I am, because I certainly couldn't do it. So no, for me, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Okay, here's the question for you then, right? So you referee the game professionally, but let's just say you're refereeing a game and there's a last-minute winner for the team that you support. Are you inside doing cartwheels and celebrating?
Yes.
Just on that,
See,
it's no secret.
I love that you're honest. I mean, that's just a human reaction. I totally understand that.
Although I'll point this out that
Steve's the perfect case point. He'll tell you all about it right now.
Being a Celtic supporter, always been a Celtic supporter, I still get pelters for disallowing a Fortuny goal.
Yeah,
and I did that through gritted teeth as well, I have to say.
I'll bet.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, it's good that you actually admit that because, I think it's only human and it's only natural that you're doing your job professionally, but if the team that you support as a kid suddenly scores a last-minute winner in the game that you're refereeing and it's a legitimate goal, etc., you'll never show your emotion on the pitch because you can't, obviously, because of your professionalism. But I'm just thinking inside as your heart racing, you're going, oh, yeah. Dancer.
Maybe a wee bit more industrial language than that, but I can't avoid it.
What's usually better is you get in the car to drive on the way up the road and your dad's phoning you and saying, what's it like being at X stadium? And, what's he really like as a player? And you're giving him the opinion. But of course, your referees enjoy football. If you enjoy football, as I said, you're going to support a team.
I can't remember the team, I can't remember the ref, but there was one in England, was there not?
Manchester United, was it not?
Was it
not Clattenburg as well?
Oh, I don't know. Where the goal went in and you saw the ref going, yes.
Yes.
But then the official
chat
was...
Fist, that's right. Was it not like a wee fist?
Aye, a wee fist pump. But then the official story was, he said he gave such a good advantage.
Exactly. Listen, Ewan, it's been fabulous having you on. Thanks very much for joining us tonight and Get Involved Referee. Maybe we'll see you next time.
You will do. Thanks, Des. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Lindsay. It's been a pleasure. Speak to you soon.
All the best. Thank you, Ewan.
Thank you.
Cheers, bud.
Interesting stuff there. It is quite an interesting aspect, the emotional side of it, the human side of it that Ewan brought up there. And it can be difficult when you're constrained by so many regulations and rules.
Yeah, but you've got your interpretation, so long as this interpretation is required. But, black and white things like whipping your jumper off and swirling it about your head, so it's black and white. And go back to the Alex Williams one, when, I stopped him, basically stopped him jumping into the crowd. Mm-hmm. But not a moment's hesitation or doubt in my mind that if he had jumped into the crowd, even though he had just scored the last minute equaliser, I'd have been sending him off for his second yellow. Yeah. So I was made out to be a bit of a saint there, and I wasn't. All right, strictly speaking, I shouldn't have.
Yeah,
I shouldn't have caught him,
I suppose.
But if he had got into the crowd, I'd have been cautioning him.
But again, that's on-field management.
Yeah.
But that's not unilaterally applied, Steve. I mean, there have been a few this season where players have gone into the crowd and they haven't been cautioned. I think we talked about one before, Moritz Jens up at Ross County.
Yep.
And he was already on a yellow, so, he could have missed a couple of games or missed a game and that type of thing.
That might have been a case where the referee has tried to use a bit of personality there, and I'm pretty positive that as Jens came back on the pitch, either he would have been spoken to or Callum McGregor would have been spoken to and saying, tell him, don't be so bloody silly the next time and stay on the pitch. But as Steve says, you're restricted by the laws of the game, and at the end of the day, you're there to apply them, and there isn't really much lateral movement.
No, there's not much leeway in that at all.
I mean, obviously, the main bone of contention since VAR has come in, guys, has been pretty much the handball situation and the penalty incidents that have ensued as a result. I mean, you're looking at only 5 of the 19 penalties awarded since VAR came in were actually given initially by the referee, and of the other 14 that were given by VAR, they were recommended on review, 8 were for fouls and 11 were for handball. So it's just endemic at the moment, isn't it?
I honestly don't know what we're doing with handball. I really don't. And it's always the same with old folk. We hark back to our own day. It was certainly imperfect, but it was much, much better. It was much more sane that the penalty for handball was given if I thought it was deliberate. End of discussion, but you might think it wasn't deliberate. Des might think it was. It's an opinion. Mm-hmm. But the way it is just now, it's, I've said it before, I think I said it last week. I could be a forward just now if all I need to do to get a penalty is just to bluter the ball into a crowd.
What's interesting, the two cases in point are that sort of highlight the sort of craziness of all at the moment. Both come at Celtic Park in the last week or so. We talked about the Bernabeu one last week where he raises his right arm when he's jumping with his left.
Mm-hmm.
And then Matt O'Reilly, was found to have given away a penalty against Ross County at the weekend there. And there's not a lot he could have done, Des. He couldn't have got out of the way, could he?
That, for me, has been the most contentious one that we've seen all season. And not to put too fine a point on it, I think the handball rule at the moment is an absolute joke.
Mm-hmm.
The wording of it, where it says, if it hits you, not you hit it, where Steve's saying there, it's your intention to play the ball, or if you stop the promise and attack. The ball's hit him. He's standing 1 yard away from him. He's not in an unnatural position. I mean, what is every handball now going to be a penalty? That's taking the skill of the referee away. The referee's there to show their knowledge of the games and application of the game. But if that ball hits you and you have no chance of getting your body out the way of it or your arm out the way of it, it doesn't mean not every foul's a free kick, not every handball's a penalty.
I couldn't agree more. It's appalling. I think it is appalling. It is a total farce. Where's Mr. O'Reilly? You put his arms.
Yep.
They've got to be somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So that the interpretation, if they're assuming that that's unnatural, he was just standing still. There was 3 of them round the guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's just standing still. He wasn't doing anything because he wasn't going past. There was nothing in there that says that was a penalty. Although the one before, I've said it, the Bernabeu one, in the interpretation, that is a penalty. Yeah. Disagree with it totally.
Yep.
But that is a penalty because it's unnatural. So high. Yeah. In the old days, we wouldn't be given that as a penalty.
No.
But it is now. But it is, like you said, take away the skill of the ref.
Yep.
Taking away the skill of the players.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I sent a picture to, obviously, our group chat of the Kilmarnock player in the second half running towards the Hibernian boy about to cross in. Now he's running for about 10 yards maybe with his hands behind him, using his shoulders to give him momentum to run. That's unnatural because you do not run with your hands behind your back. So unfortunately, it's the hot topic at the moment, and it's unfortunately the wrong application for it, because it's certainly, I can see it if you're making your body bigger, I can see if you're trying to stop an attack deliberately, but the words deliberate and intent do not appear anywhere in the laws of the game anymore.
In fairness to our guys, though, they're only applying what UEFA want our guys to apply as well. Isn't that right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's what we keep saying. And I'm sure, I can't remember who it was that gave the penalty. The one the other week where Bernabeu again. He must have been looking at that and going, that's a handball? So the refs hate it every bit as much as everybody else does, but they're bound to give it. And as Ewan said, if you don't give that, then you're downgraded, so you're not getting the games again. But I mean, that's the consequences of you not getting a game, or potentially Celtic losing 2 winning positions in consecutive weeks because of penalties. It's appalling.
I think it's been accepted because Celtic won. Could you imagine if Postecoglou came out of there with 1 point, and Rangers obviously taking 1 point in the weekend? I think there'd be a lot more noise coming out of Celtic Park.
That's what I mean. It didn't damage them in terms of the results. They won all these 2 matches, and equally they won the Hearts game where the Michael Smith handball wasn't given in their favour. So in each occasion, it hasn't hurt them, but it could hurt them in the future, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, if you take them out, there's certainly a draw at the weekend there if that wasn't there. Hearts game, well, they won that quite comfortably. In Dundee United last week, they did go into it comfortably, but there's drop points, and that's not reflective in how they're playing.
Celtic complained to the SFA about that Michael Smith one. Oh, sorry, the beg your pardon. They complained to the SFA about the Jota offside decision in the Motherwell match last midweek. I think they were maybe meddling a little bit because I think the Hawkeye technology is more decisive than the camera angles. Is that your understanding?
As far as I'm aware, yeah. But it might have been a bit of mischief making, but I think they had a point.
Yeah.
What on earth is the cameraman doing pointing at the dugout area when he should be following the play?
I know. But then to come up with a squiggly line, and then what I can't get my head around is, when they came out and said, we admit we didn't have a proper angle.
Yeah.
So what are you doing overturning a decision on the pitch, going on a guess?
If you don't have the right picture and if you don't have the correct picture and the correct information, you cannot make a correct decision. that's factual. You can't make a correct decision if you do not have that information. So I think the statement was a bit. I don't know. I wouldn't have let that one out if I was in the.
No,
the
I
PR
wouldn't
guys.
be. And again, you wonder who signs these things off.
Yeah.
I certainly wouldn't. But we're talking about them, being so secretive, and then they choose their times to come out, and it's couldn't believe that when that came out. So the official SFA policy is that we have a guess.
Yeah.
Again, it didn't damage Celtic ultimately, because they came through to win that match. So, but these are things that could be, massive in the end up, isn't it?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they're 9 points clear just now. They could be 6 or they could be 12. I mean, so you've got, if you're using technology, the technology's correct. It just wasn't getting used correctly by the cameraman. Too busy interested in what's going on in the technical area.
Yeah, but strictly speaking, and I know it's really stretching it, but 3 big decisions that went against them, if that turns into 3 defeats, then they're level pegging.
A big call, or rather a big VAR intervention, if you like, in Paisley in the St Mirren Rangers game. Kevin Clancy books Ryan Kent for what he thinks is simulation, and then he has to go and have a look at the monitor, guys, and he realises it actually was a penalty.
Well, that one was right. But I'll say in defence of Kevin, when I saw it first time, I thought it was a dive. But then when you saw it in review, yep, it was a foul. But then that was immediately replaced by, what the hell was the defender doing?
I know the defender's actually almost tried to pull himself out of the challenge, but he was already committed. But what I will say, and he'll give VAR its praise there, that's what VAR's for. It's to overturn these. That is the purpose of VAR. It was used correctly. Kevin wouldn't have liked knowing that he's got it ultimately wrong, but Andrew Dallas was the VAR official, got Kevin across, do your on-field review, correct, rescind penalty, rescind the caution and a card. That's the way it should always be. And
they've done it at speed?
Yes.
So that's how VAR works, and that's proof that the technology, if the cameraman's watching, that the technology works, and when you act on it, perfect.
Talking about human, I guess Kevin was probably a little bit mortified by all of that and disappointed and unhappy that he's been made to look rather foolish. He didn't appear to be too contrite when he was rescinding the yellow card from Ryan Kent.
No.
But again, ultimately that could, we're talking about Rangers being 9 points behind Celtic in the league, but that point could be absolutely crucial for them.
Absolutely. Every point at this moment in time, Van Bronckhorst is fighting for. And also, that could be a totting up process for Kent as well. He may be under the threat of a second yellow card during that game.
Of course.
And totting up could be suspended for a game down the line.
Yeah.
So it was a critical decision, but as we say, praise it correctly. They got the right decision.
Right. And Tavernier's reaction, you saw how important that was.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Just on a kind of quirky one, that's the 8th penalty that St Mirren have conceded this season. They're obviously absolute thugs and maniacs at the back there, aren't they?
I was going to say, you know what these people for Renfrewshire are like.
I'm in the leafy parts.
Well, I suppose it's quirky, isn't it? There's no real sort of logic to that, is there?
No, I'm sure somebody else will overtake them.
Yeah, hopefully.
And there was just one more incident in that match I'd like to talk to you about just quickly. It was the challenge on Leon King that left the poor kid really quite in disturbing condition, lying in the turf, out cold. 7 minutes it took the medics to get him all sorted out and strapped into the stretcher, getting his neck and his head sorted out, and then taken to hospital where it was discovered he did suffer concussion. You've had a look at it, fellas, and it's a robust challenge by Curtis Main, but is it a nasty one, or is it an accidental one, or what do you think?
I think it's just a collision that will happen during a physical game of football. I don't think that Curtis Main has went to injure the boy, unfortunately, and thankfully he's okay now and he's being looked after. But I thought it was quite innocuous. I didn't see anything there that was jumping out at me to think, oh, right, he's thumped one in the back of the head. And I just felt it was a fair jump with unfortunate circumstances that resulted from it.
Yeah, no, I think I agree. It certainly didn't look as though there was anything bad in it. I think you, Lindsay, used the phrase at one point, a footballing incident.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me. Unfortunate consequences, and thankfully the boy will be okay. But no, I think that just looked like one of those horrible consequences of a contact sport. And
just quickly on concussion again, obviously they're allowed to make the concussion substitution, aren't they? And if that happens, though, the player cannot play for 2 weeks, is that correct? Something like that?
It's along those lines. There are concussion protocols, and it's actually good to hear that they have the concussion subs, whatever we're going to call them. Although quite disturbing that I'm certainly not aware of. Somebody will correct me how many times that's been used. Concussion is something that we should be taking so seriously. When you see some of the figures that come out that show you how much more prevalent among contact sports people things like MND are compared to normal punters. And gone are the days where you just rub somebody in the head with a cold sponge and tell them to get on with it. No, that's brain damage isn't something that you want anybody to suffer.
They've even brought it in youth football that they can't practice heading at training. They don't do it because obviously they've had medical research that what these long-term effects are having on somebody. But the main thing is that the boy's well and he'll take the time needed that it would be to recover, and obviously we've got a natural break now. Absolutely.
And just on a lighter note to finish off, your old friend Bobby Madden in the thick of the action at the weekend down in England, Fleetwood Town, and of course Scott Brown against Joey Barton in the dugouts, and lo and behold, Bobby sends off Joey at the end of the game. He wasn't very happy with some of the decisions, Des.
Aye. Not that we're betting people, but you could have bet your bottom dollar that there was going to be something involving Joey Barton in that game. With Scott Brown standing 10 yards along to the side, it's an old firm derby getting played in the north coast of England.
That's media heaven, isn't it? Those two.
That's just the gift that keeps giving, as they would say, with those two. But he's obviously Joey's step beyond Bobby's tolerance level, and Bobby's taken the action that he felt was deserved.
But Joey Barton actually praised Bobby later on and apologised for his behaviour, so who knew?
He never done that when he was in Scotland.
No. You seen the size of Bobby, right enough?
Oh, he'd be a brave man to take Bobby on, that's for sure.
Listen, thanks for listening to us this week on Get Involved Referee. Remember to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Let us have your thoughts and questions, and we'll catch you next time.